And if you're asking them to try something, it's inferring that maybe you don't really care.
It's inferring that, like, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
No big deal.
Worries.
Where it really might be like kind of a non-negotiable. So instead of saying, please try to do this, I would say, please change.
Do you have a brilliant product idea but don't know where to start to get it made? Or are you looking to level up your product but afraid to take it overseas?
If so, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Jackie.
And I'm Erin, and we are
The Sourcing Gals,
your trusted guides to everything you need to know about sourcing, manufacturing, and scaling your product overseas. Whether you are just starting out or you've been making your own product for a while, we are here to help women source products overseas without the overwhelm.
In each episode, we'll share insider tips, actionable strategies, and inspiring stories to help you source more effectively, save time, and boost your profits.
Duh!
We know how hard it can be to juggle the ins and outs of product development, but don't worry, we've got your back.
So grab a cup of coffee, get comfy, and let's dive into how you can grow your business,
make more money,
and turn your products into profit. Welcome to The
Sourcing Gals. Now let's get started. High five.
Hi. If you're building a product-based business and finding yourself second-guessing decisions or wishing you had someone to gut check, we want you to know you don't have to do this alone.
On January 1st, we're opening the Sourcing Gals Founders Circle, our private community for product-based founders.
Inside, you'll get monthly Q&A calls with us, access to our templates, scripts, and tools, and most importantly, a community of founders building right alongside you.
It's only $27 a month, or for a limited time, $247 for the year. That's 3 months free. You can find all the details in the show notes. Hope to see you there. Welcome back to another episode of
The Sourcing Gals.
Oh my gosh. Let's try that again. Okay. So funny. Okay. Welcome to another episode of
The Sourcing Gals.
Erin, I must say today, you are looking rather profesh.
Thanks.
Like professor vibes, which is actually really good for today's podcast, I feel like, because it's going to be super educational.
Because we're going to school.
Where I'm schleppy in a sweatshirt right now and feeling very comfortable, might I say, though.
So we'll say the funny thing is that these pants are like wide leg wool trousers and they're like comfortable.
Oh, okay.
And so I threw them on with this button up just to take the kids to school and thought, oh, I'll change later. And then I got to doing other things and then I was like, I'm just going to throw a vest over top and call her a day.
Well, it's really cute. You look
Thanks.
great. You look great.
Thanks. I was trying for warm and then, you know.
Well, it turned out great. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about today, which as we sit here and communicate with you, we're actually going to turn the tables and talk about how do we communicate best with our factories, and understanding that a lot of factory mistakes aren't actually manufacturing problems, but communication problems.
I think that a lot of mistakes are communication issues. I mean, what's a percentage? What do you think would be a percentage?
Oh my gosh. I mean, definitely north of 50.
Yeah, I was going to say 65.
Yeah, okay, there you go. North of 50 for sure is miscommunication. And you have to think about this, right? Factory communication is generally done via what model?
Email. Sometimes WhatsApp, but mostly email.
So if you think about, how many times can you, as a listener, misinterpret a text message from somebody, right? Whether it's the tone of which they're saying it or what they're actually asking you to do, right? So written form is very different than me sitting here looking at you face to face. I can read your body language. I can understand, if you're picking up what I'm putting down, right? You're giving me a nonverbal cue of nodding your head right now to me. So you have to imagine that the way that we're talking to these factories about very complicated things, i.e. manufacturing and product development, is being done in written form.
And in these chunks of time or these segments that occur usually every day. And in some cases, I'll use an example that I encountered this week. Someone who was sending multiple emails in a given day.
Oh.
And that's like...
To the factory?
To the factory.
Oh, yeah. No.
That's like 101. That's product development 101. One email a day.
Correct. So here's your first tip, guys. One email a day. One. Yeah, and that seems crazy, right? That might be like, well, how do you do that? You work on it throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
you capture all the information you need. You don't have to hit send because a majority of the factories you're talking to, guess what? They're in a different time zone, which actually is a whole nother part of the complexity of written form of communication, is that you have someone on the other end that has a very high likelihood that English is their second language.
Or third or fourth.
Yes, or maybe barely their language, right? We have some of those vendors that you find that just aren't as strong in the English language as others. And so these are all different things that you have to just be aware of as you're going into communication with factories.
But I think that we want to be very clear here that language barriers do not mean intelligence gaps.
Love that.
I think that, we'll talk about some cultural differences in communication, but I think that is unfortunately like a very bad habit that some people fall into, or an incorrect assumption that because English isn't spoken well, that means it's harder to understand the point, which these people who you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis are incredibly intelligent. They're great at their jobs. In fact, they probably know more about it than
Way
you do.
more than we do. Let's be real.
But translating those ideas from another language is incredibly difficult.
Correct. And again, going back to that written form, factories are going to execute what you say, not necessarily what you mean.
Right.
Right? You can have this idea in your head and think you are so clear about it, but the way in which you write those words out, that is what they are executing against. Truly, what is coming out of your brain and into that email. So you have to be really, really clear with your intentions and then how you express those intentions, again, in a written form.
I will actually give you an example of something that happened this week where a client said, I want it to ship very clean.
Oh,
She said, I want it to ship very clean. I want the product to ship cleanly. And the factory took that to mean we're going to wrap it in 5, layers of plastic so it doesn't get dirty. She meant minimal.
love that. Great.
She meant without extra plastic, without excess.
So in her head, clean meant one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the factory took it as a legitimately like hypoallergenic clean. Like,
Right.
How do we keep this immaculate from getting anything on it, on the product when it ships?
Correct. So that was just that's such an example of miscommunication, because what was being said and what was meant were kind of two different things. And it's easy to do that when you're typing, and when as, someone who speaks English as their first language, nuance and innuendo and assumptions on what a word means are very different than someone who learns it literally. In a literal sense.
Yes, 100%. So I think that's a great example. And I think also sometimes we try to be polite in our emails, which I'm a big proponent of. We talked about this. I say thank you, I say please, I ask how their weekend was. But sometimes that can again be a disadvantage when you're talking to your factories about what you actually need executed. So the word try. Can you please try to do this? It's like, well, do you actually want them to or not? Now, again, that would be probably typically how I would ask you, Erin, to do something nicely. I'm like, hey, what do you think about, right? Like we use those words. But when you are talking to an email, you need to be very clear with them on exactly what it is you want. And if you're asking them to try something, it's inferring that maybe you don't really care.
It's inferring that, like, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
No big deal.
Worries.
Where it really might be like kind of a non-negotiable. So instead of saying, please try to do this, I would say, please change. Please, and you can use the word, again, please. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing rude about this, but it's just being very clear and direct. Please change X to Y. So again, it's like finding those opportunities to reread those emails once you write them and say, do an audit. Where in this email might I be using some filler words, some emotion words that might not be actually telling the factory clearly what it is you mean?
Absolutely. And then I also try to take out, you're right, like the filler words, but also the expectation that a factory would take what I mean, take what I say, and then do a bunch of work to get to the root cause of what I'm asking. I'll give another example also from this week.
Let's got a lot of good stuff going on this week.
There was a lot. There was a lot this week. But it was just like a screenshot of we would like blank. Well, what's not said is that screenshot also didn't include certain colorways that we had initially sampled. So I went back, I scrubbed all the data, and I said, we do not want X. We do want Y. Please drop X. Please replace it with Y. And that sounds very redundant and oversimplistic, but it is the way to get a clear directive across without the person on the other end having to do any guessing work.
No, it's clarity. Like you are giving the factory clarity by simplifying to a fault. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And I'll even say, as Erin's talking about, change this to this, dropping this. This is a great example where bullet points can be very helpful in a factory email back and forth. It doesn't always, if anything, sometimes the paragraph can get tricky. Like the longer you're writing something,
Correct.
and if you're asking for multiple things in one blip, it can get real dicey. It's very easy for someone to overlook the fact that you've actually asked 3 questions, right, within a 4-sentence paragraph. So we always say break it out. For every ask, it should either be a separate sentence, a separate bullet point, making it very, very clear to your factory that these are separate things they need to reply to each point. And sometimes I've had a vendor in the past that was not as great about replying to each and every one of my points. And so I would clearly start every email with, please see below, please reply to each point. And I would just reiterate that. So when they came back to me and there were still missing points, I could be like, hey, as per the below, please reply. Like I really need your answers to each and every point. But if we as the writers are not helping facilitate that and making it easier, it can be even more challenging on a factory.
Absolutely. And you brought up a good point too, which is just simply formatting. This is another like product development 101 that you learn when you're in the corporate world, which is I always use my initials and then the date. And then I reply in the email directly below their point.
Correct. It's like your email should look like a rainbow smorgasbord. Literally. It's like you reply in red, then blue, then pink. It's always like, oh, what color are we going to do next?
Right. I used to have a vendor, Anne, who we would start on Monday with a fresh email. She would write a fresh email to me, and then we would use all the colors through the week. And then on Friday, she'd be like, no more rainbow on Monday. We'd be like, no more rainbow on Monday.
I love that.
And we'd start it back
great.
over the following Monday. But really, it allowed you to, at a glance, understand what needs attention.
Correct.
And if something's not responded to by your vendor, you can easily see and say, did you get an answer here? Where are we with this?
Correct.
To kind of draw that information out instead of it being skipped over.
And I also love, Erin mentioned, a lot of times, and a lot of this can be personal preference. It might be the factory's preference, but some people choose to start that fresh email and truly start clean, meaning you archive the old one. Some will start a fresh email, but you'll keep your email train below. So you can easily scroll down and see.
I always keep history.
Okay. So I've worked with some product development colleagues that really, they keep their history, but they like to actually keep the history weekly in a folder and then start like a fresh email where I'm a scroller. I like to, I scroll down a lot on the daily. I'm scrolling down to 1 day, 5 days, maybe even 2 weeks before where they might have said something and I remembered it and I was like, where is that? So it's an easy thing for me. So I'm one to just continue to your point, clean up the email. Every so often I'll start deleting comments that are no longer valid, no longer pertinent. We've tied a bow on it.
Close it out.
And then guess what? Below in my email thread is where it still lives, right? So it's still there. It's not gone. But my reply to them, I'm going to take out the points that are no longer pertinent so we can really focus on the things that are.
Absolutely. And then, because I like it all to be in the scrolling past like you do, I will say another thing I mentioned earlier, someone sending multiple emails in one day. The other thing that will confuse a vendor is if you start a fresh email every day. Even if you're sending one a day, if you send a fresh email every day and you're referencing the email from yesterday or it has a different subject line, it's going to be very hard for them to find in their folder of emails. So that's why keeping it on one, which my vendor I referenced earlier, and she used to always, instead of calling it a thread, she used to call it a trail.
Oh, I like
but she
that.
spelled trail wrong, so she always called it a trial. So we'd always be like, "Don't delete the email trial." And then at one point we all caught on, and we laughed about it years later. But um, keeping it on the same subject, the same trail, you can clean it up. You can take out some of the re's, forward,
Yeah.
whatever. But it just means that when they're skimming their inbox for your subject, they're finding it. I always struggle a lot, even personally. I struggle a lot when I email someone and then they'll reply, not to my email, but in a different email. I'm like, wait, what's going on here? And then I'm
Correct.
confused.
Correct. Yeah, and again, this is all about making it easiest for both you and the factory, right? And even in your own email train, it just makes it, again, so much easier to go back and find that missing information that you maybe forgot to write down, maybe you forgot to copy it over, or maybe you've made a change. You decided to take a pivot and you want to go back down and say, okay, what got us here? How do I reiterate this? Or even going back and saying what the words I used and the sample I got aren't aligning. So I'm going to go back down in my email, re-review what I had asked for, and try to think about how can I make this clearer.
And a lot of times I'll re-review what I've asked for and I'm like, oh,
Here's
I
where it is.
understand. I said blank.
Yep.
And they took it as this and I meant this. I will say something that piggybacks onto what we mentioned earlier. Depending on what you're talking about or what you're reviewing, I also sometimes like to give kind of an affirmative and a negative of each statement. So let's say that you get a lab dip, you get a color, and it's looking a little like grimy. We saw a beige last week,
Yes.
and we were talking about
Yeah.
could this be cleaned up? Could it be brightened? Is it looking a little grimy?
Yep.
So we would say to the vendor two things. I would say two things. This looks a little dull or
Mhm.
dirty. Please make it more bright,
Saturated.
cleaner. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Please do this. Please don't do this.
Correct.
So you're giving the positive and the negative you're giving kind of both sides of the coin of a situation so that it's double clear. Don't do this, do this.
I think something else as you're navigating this product development journey in your emails, pictures are great.
Oh, yeah.
Huge fan. I know we both do this. You can literally take it on your phone, throw it into Canva, add your notes in, upload it, embed it within your email. How many times do you say see attached? I mean, probably every other night I'm saying, please see attached. And it's something helping describe a little bit further than my words can give it. And I will also tell you with the technology, we're jumping ahead here, but we talked a little bit about WeChat or WhatsApp, depending on where you are. WeChat's more for China. WhatsApp's pretty global. I am one to do videos on that. And it has sometimes, again, been a game changer to be able to show a sample and take a video with your phone of exactly what you're talking about and sending that over to the vendor. And they'll do the same thing for me. A lot of times vendors will send me videos to say, hey, here's where we're struggling, or do you like this? Or, even getting approvals to go faster. It's like, let me send you a photo before I put it in the mail and it takes 7 days to get to you. Let me make sure that I've understood what you're asking for. So
Right,
I think
videos are great.
Yeah, I can never use videos, use photos. The more descriptive you can be. Arrows. We love arrows. We love arrows. We love circling. And it doesn't have to be pretty either. It could be your chicken scratch handwriting on top of a picture that you're going to take a photo with your cell phone and give it to them. I mean, literally, this does not need to be professionally done. This is just to help clarify. Again, clarity.
I have had pictures before where it's been a circle and an arrow. No. And then another circle and an arrow. Yes. And again, it seems abrupt, but it's clear.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody gets it.
Yep.
It'll help your product move forward with more speed and more accuracy.
And I think we mentioned this also, but when you are asking for those questions, when you are giving approvals, make sure each thing is outlined, again, on its own line. Just really be specific about each point is to do with one item. Kind of like a line, like a grocery list, right? You're going to go through the list and you're going to say, this approved. Even if they send the whole thing, the whole thing's approved, great, map it out.
Right.
Mark it out, make sure they're understanding every single approval that you're giving them, not just yeah, everything looks great, let's go.
Right. We ran into that a lot in the jewelry world because there's so many facets, literally and figuratively, where let's say one earring would have 10 different colors of stones and 10 different sizes. So it'd be arrows, approved, not approved, approved, not approved. Overall, approved. Colors outstanding are these ones. that's how granular it would be.
And some other tip that I'll throw in there, we've talked before about a TNA, timing and action. That's basically your calendar that the factory will help give you. It'll tell you when your sample approval due date is, when your PP samples are being sent, your TOPs, your X factory, meaning when it's leaving the factory, if that's how you're working, or your NDC, which is if they're full LDP, if they're delivering the full goods to you when it's going to be arriving here in the country. A lot of times, if you are in the middle of it, you can actually have that floating calendar right at the very tippy top of your email, and it just stays there. And so it's keeping you both accountable, right?
I'm laughing because obviously we learned at the same place, but I'm like, of course you have the TNA at the very top of your email.
Yes. So it's a way to keep each other accountable. Like, hey, how are we tracking to that sample deadline date? How are we tracking to that PP approval date? And
tell me this, what if your sourcing agent lived in your browser? Meet Axio. This is Alibaba's AI-powered sourcing engine that understands what you need. It matches you with pre-vetted suppliers, it analyzes trends, it even helps with compliance. If you want to test for a special certification or custom specs, Axio handles that. With the new Axio agent, it automates requests for quotes and follow-ups as well. Even us, the sourcing gals, we have used it to cut sourcing time from weeks to minutes. And with our code, the sourcing gals, your first month is just $1. Then $19.99 per month after that. If you're launching or scaling a product business, this tool changes the game. Try Axio with our code today.
You've done your email, you're going back and forth, and now actual product is coming to you. Mm-hmm. And it's time to give feedback. Can you tell the listeners, like, how would you approach this? How would you reply back to the factory? What are you doing when it comes to giving them feedback on, let's say, your first sample?
You know, going back to something you said earlier, which is like bullet points. Mm-hmm. Bullet points. I will, images, take a picture of the sample, arrow to what is and is not right, bullet points about those things. I have, and this is an opportunity where you can go back to your high school, like, paragraph writing, where it's like, start out with the introduction and like, then go into the points. So I'll say, I have 4 changes from what came. I will go through each change below. Change 1, and then I talk about the change. And then I say, you see reference image or whatever. Change 2. And I go through it like that, like as formatted and clear and outlined as possible.
Yeah, while you might get it and be like, oh, it's just a little off. Like, that's not going to help your factory.
No. Oh my goodness. Jackie, if we talked about the amount of times I've had a designer who I've worked with be like, it's just not quite right. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I see it too.
Yes.
But we can't say that to the vendor.
Exactly. So again, we're just trying to reiterate clarity, clarity, clarity. That's going to be the word of this episode. And the more organized you can be with that clarity, the better.
Right. So like, what's not right about it?
Correct.
Are the measurements incorrect? How you can't even just say the measurements are incorrect. That's not even good enough. I would say the length is short by 2 inches. Please go back to spec, add 2 inches.
Correct.
So you can see I said it 3 different times.
Yep.
It's short by 2 inches. Please go back to spec, add 2 inches. Like,
yes.
You know what I mean? Like, really reiterate what's wrong with it. Don't just say this isn't right. What's not right?
And then I think on the flip side, though, if you have a sample and let's say there are 4 things, as you mentioned, that are incorrect, but let's say that there are 3 that are correct, call out the 3 that are correct as well. The last thing you want is for them to go change the 4 and then all of a sudden the 3 that were actually right, they took artistic liberty, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, but those were fine. So
I have had that happen.
Yes, 100%. So make sure you're also calling out what is correct, what you like, and what is approved. We like the words approved. Approved means literally don't touch it. Mm-hmm. Again, like, and it might be shorthanded APVD, approved, but like, however you say it.
I'd say do the whole word in caps and bolded.
I love it. And green. Green is good. Green is good.
Go. Green approved.
So let's make sure you're telling the factory, though, what truly is approved. And that can be components. That could be placement. That could be color. That, right, whatever that is, that literally lets them know, okay, we can check this off the box and move forward.
Mm-hmm. So touching on something we mentioned earlier, we talked about sending 1 email a day instead of multiple emails. But when is the best time of day to send that email?
So there's 2 ways. Let's talk about first truly overseas. Let's say the other half of the globe. I'm thinking India, Bangladesh, China, Japan, right? Those that are, I would say, 10 to 12 hour time zone. Like basically when you're sleeping, they are working. I'm not practicing this very well right now, so I'm apologizing to my factories overseas. Ideally, it is I want to be respectful of their time when they're getting in the office around, let's say, 8 a.m. That reply is in their inbox. So that means by my 8 p.m. or my 6 p.m. I have to hit send. Now, I've been working a little late these nights with my factory, so again, that's not as being as respectful of. But in a perfect world, that email I believe should be sent at the end of my working day, meaning before dinner-ish, ideally, so that the minute they're in, they can take a look at it. And some of those vendors, they're not dissimilar to us. They're waking up and they're checking their emails. And if they get a little line of sight as to what may or may not be coming down the pipeline, they can help prioritize their day to get you the replies that they're going to send, by the way, back to you, hopefully by your morning. So that's if you are truly overseas. Okay, so for nearshore, this is a little bit different. I will tell you that I've worked multiple ways with this. I've had some vendors nearshore that, to be honest, we might go back and forth multiple times in a day because you're in the same time zone. So think Peru, think Canada, or even depending Europe, depending on, again, that time change, if it's not too far. Ideally, you're still focusing on one a day. But if there is something that you actually want to talk to them about real time, then maybe an email midday to check in with them. Hey, do you have time to hop on a call? Or, hey, I'm looking for an answer today so that I can give you this information ASAP. That's where I think it gets a little bit dicier, and it's actually worth even asking your vendor, like, how do you prefer to work? When do you expect your emails? What's best for you? It's okay to ask those questions too. And then my other favorite thing I will say, and I've mentioned this on a prior podcast with specifically overseas, China specifically, I am very open to hopping on a WhatsApp or a WeChat call, which basically is like a Zoom call with the factory, my 9 p.m., their 9 a.m., my 10 p.m. even. I just actually spoke with my fabric mill the other night, and, he's in China. And so he's like, can you do 8 o'clock China time? I'm like, yes, I can, right? Like, I'm going to be respectful and let him do it during his workday, and I'll take it out of my nighttime to sit and have a meeting with him. And so that 2-hour call that we had was the best 2 hours from 8 to 10 p.m. that I ever could have had. And that would have taken, it never would have even happened. The amount of information that was shared in that 2-hour call could never even have been portrayed in an email chain back and forth. So sometimes I'm a big proponent of just hop on a call with them or hop on a WeChat or a WhatsApp where you can literally, instead of emailing 20 times back and forth at 8 p.m. at night and 8 a.m. their morning, do it in a chat, do it on a phone, and it just goes so much faster. You can send pictures, you can send voice notes. So when you are, I do not suggest doing this every night. This is for when you have an urgent thing.
An urgent thing or a thing that you are stuck on because you need an answer.
Yes.
So a lot of times I'll be like, I would love to get you this information that you need, but I'm confused about blank. We need to talk about this quickly so that I can get you your answer.
Yeah. And it's not like something that you want to spend. I mean, you could literally spend 7 days going back and forth, asking 7 different questions. Or again, depending on the importance of the urgency, you could hop on a WeChat, text each other back and forth within 5 minutes and have the answer done. So I do think there are times where it calls for that. And if you're willing to take that time out of your evening, for their morning, and they'll do the same thing. I mean, they'll talk to you at all hours of the night, let's be honest. But I do think there are times where expedited communication can be really helpful.
And something that you can do if you don't have a planned call, I've sent video WeChats, like video messages, where I've said, hey, I'm stuck on something, or I need the extra information. When you get this, if you could just ping me so that we can work it out. And send it over, or shown something really quick and being like, when you get into the office, could you address this first? So it really just opens up the options when it comes to communication, which is very nice.
And this is something else I know people have asked, you're really emailing them every day? Yes. I love that we both said that at the exact same time. Yes, you are not annoying them. You are keeping lines of communication open. I have seen so many founders that will let a week to 2 weeks to 3 weeks go between emails. Well, they're going to email me when they're ready for that sample. No, you need to project manage them. and I say that respectfully. They have a lot of customers they are dealing with, a lot of product categories. You being in their inbox every day is not an annoyance. It's accountability for them, and it's them realizing that you are a founder that is showing up, that wants the answers, and you don't have to be rude about the daily, right? If they even said, hey, we need 2 days for reply, give them the space. That's okay.
Right.
But there's usually, with how much complexity goes into every single product, there's usually something new to say almost every day.
Yeah. And especially if I have a vendor who I'm working on like one thing with, sometimes we won't have a lot. So they'll say, I'll get back to you by Wednesday. And then I'll be on Wednesday, I'll be emailing, hey, looking for an update today.
Yes.
What do you have for me? Something like that. But that kind of leads me into culturally, there are gaps in how we communicate. And I think that's something to address because we mentioned earlier about English being a second language or third or fourth for a lot of the folks that you deal with, but also just how outgoing you are or how direct you are or how many times you email, like all of that stuff has a bit of cultural nuance to it. So I will say that in any country, starting your email out with a little, hey, hope you had a great weekend.
Yeah, a nice salutation.
A nice salutation is wonderful. But then being very direct from there and very clear kind of cuts through like any cultural nuance. I will give you the caveat that in some like South Asian countries, there tends to be like a lot more like flourish and a lot more like flowery words around something rather than getting to the point. And getting to the point can come across pretty rude. I'm thinking of some of my India vendors and stuff like that, like really want to have like a more in-depth convo.
Yeah.
Or even being direct is seen as like, as a little bit too much.
Aggressive.
And you'll learn that when you are speaking with people and they're not, however they're being to you is how they're kind of expecting to
That's
be treated.
a great call out.
So a lot of my vendors from that part of the world will tend to like soften bad news. And I'm like, just give it to me straight. But it did teach me that sometimes being too direct comes across as rude in some of the cultures.
And I know we've talked about this. I know we keep referencing these old podcasts, but the other part about this communication is making sure you're taking them along your big picture product journey as well, right? We're talking a lot about the details, like, which is very important when you're in the heavy product development scope. But if there's an ask that's a little bit of a stretch and you can tell that there's some maybe resistance on your vendor's side, let them know why. Explain to them that you're not just trying to be difficult, right? You're not just trying to be super particular. And if you are being difficult or particular, maybe take a step back and take a breath and say, does this really matter to my customer? Or is this just a me thing? So I have that as a disclaimer out there. But if it truly is something that is brand defining on your non-negotiable list that we've talked about, explain it to them. Explain the why it is so important. Context is so helpful. Especially when you're in this back and forth, very bullet list, kind of lack of emotion. You're just kind of in this execution mode. It can be easy for the vendor to kind of forget, oh, wait, what's the bigger picture here? Like the goal is to get here so that we can scale to X, or the goal is to find this cost savings because I really want to be having my next order triple the size. And right. So just make sure you're also, when the time is right, when appropriate, that if you have to redirect them to your bigger picture vision, that they're getting that as well.
Absolutely. And then the last thing that I was going to kind of say on like the cultural element is that in the US, we tend to just work all the time, around the clock, on our phone, on our laptop, at home, at the office. And not all countries are like that. In fact, a lot of countries have very strict labor laws on allowing folks to work outside of normal work hours. And then other
Not
cultures,
here in the US, that's for sure.
No. And then other cultures just are like a little more lax. Think about the amount of like holidays in certain countries, or the amount of like, I don't want to point any fingers, but there are certain European countries that like responses don't come very quick.
Well, you got a siesta in the middle of the day you have to enjoy, right? A 3-course lunch and siesta. So, and amazing for them.
Amazing.
But you have to understand, as someone trying to work with them, there's going to have to be some flexibility and patience, right?
Yes. I'll give a very like specific example. I used to work with a lot of leather goods and tanneries in Italy, and amazing product, really high cost luxury leathers. But I would be waiting for an answer forever and then be like, hey guys, are we anywhere on this? And they're like, we'll get there. I'm like, I will get there is hard for me.
Yeah,
hard.
It's a hard reply.
But if you're willing to roll with it and wait with it, you're going to get a great product.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's very different. And then we talked to Liz Long, who works for Nearshore AI, who talked about that too.
Correct.
That was a couple weeks ago. We talked with her, and she talked a lot about the differences in communication style between different countries that she's familiar with. So just keep it in mind.
Yeah.
Keep it in mind. And if all else fails, ask someone how they want to be communicated with. Do you want a daily email? Do you want me to get your emails in the morning? Like you just said earlier.
Yes. And I know I've also worked with some countries who work kind of crazy hours to be on US hours.
Yes.
Right? So, and sometimes that was beneficial and sometimes it actually wasn't for my team because the emails were coming later and later and later in the day. So you also have the ability to ask your factory, hey, you know what, it'd be really helpful if you could try to get me those responses by 9 a.m., 10 a.m., right? And then talking about if a factory is getting to you very late in the day and they're on a major time zone from you. So no, it can go both ways, but definitely ask. And I think ChatGPT could be a really great way too to just understand some different cultural differences. Like what might I encounter if I start looking to manufacture in this country versus this? What are some of the social norms, the expectations? And that might even help narrow some things down to you. Like if you are not someone that's going to be able to just be kind of laissez-faire and wait it out, and you want someone that's going to be a little more intense and on the ball about it, and the product wise isn't going to be sacrificed either way, then that might be the other country might be a better way to go, to be honest.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
For your own sanity.
So dealing with like the cultural kind of nuance and personality elements, and then we talked about like very tactical things. Those are really the two sides of communication, obviously. And I always say that, like, I don't know if I always say it on the podcast or I always say it in real life, but like disappointment is really that gap in expectations. So making sure you shore up those expectations between who you're communicating with is always going to be helpful.
And I want to say that factories don't fail you. Communication does.
Oh my goodness. Say it again.
Factories don't fail you. Communication does. And as we said, north of 50% of the time that we believe most factory errors, issues, quality issue, I mean, all of it can be tracked down to the communication or lack of clear communication.
Because if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen, Jackie.
Oh, I like that one too.
Well, we talked earlier about like how to only do one email a day and stuff like that. And it's just, it all goes back to like document.
Yep.
Every time during the day you have a thought or you have anything, put it in your email. And at the end of the day, go through and edit, make it nice and understandable, and send her out.
I think this is Erin subliminally telling me that instead of texting her 25 times a day, I should just start a text draft and maybe just hit it once.
I wasn't thinking about that.
But maybe you're like, actually, that'd be really nice though, maybe.
I wasn't thinking about that. But, texts are a little bit different. Like WeChat or like WhatsApp with the vendor, like some things are in the moment. But really, I think that I do want to say something that I thought about earlier, which is one of my favorite quotes from Gretchen Rubin. And it is, clear is kind, unclear is unkind.
Ooh. So we're going to leave you on that note because I think that just sums it up.
I love it. You can use it in communication with your vendors or in your personal life. You're welcome.
You're welcome. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. And we just want to mention a couple things. This is a podcast. And as such, reviews are very helpful for us. So if you haven't reviewed our podcast, please do. Just drop just a quick little tap of your finger is all you need to do, and a quick follow. Even easier tap. I mean, it's like literally one tap to follow, to subscribe for what we're doing.
And it means so much to us.
It does. It means so much to us. And we have a lot of exciting things happening outside this podcast. So make sure you're looking for us on Instagram. We're going to be getting on TikTok here soon, on LinkedIn, all the platforms. But we're really excited to be building a community with you all. And so we'll be sure to have everything linked here in the show notes for you.
Jackie.
Yes.
You just said community.
Yes, I did just say community.
We want to remind everybody that we have launched a Facebook community. It's a private paid community with people who every day are in the trenches making product-based businesses. And once a month, we do a live Q&A call.
Like they get one-on-one time with us to ask any questions. And I'm not just saying high-level questions. I mean, sourcing gals, will you please look at this factory quote? Are they ripping me off? Truly. And we already have founders that are in it. And it's so exciting to see everybody communicating back and forth with each other, introducing themselves, their product-based businesses. There are some that have already launched. There are some that are pre-launched. So it's a really exciting and energetic group. So we really want you to be a part of it. So we'll make sure that that is also in the show notes. It is called the Founder Circle private Facebook community. Come and join us. We'd love to have you there.
Love to see you there.
Okay. Well, I'm tired. I'm time for a cocktail, I think. Sounds like cocktail time.
I think so. It's getting so dark early here. The cocktail hour just keeps starting.
Okay.
Anyway.
I think that's where we're off to.
All right. See you guys later.
Thanks for the next time on
The Sourcing Gals.